I'm Bob Fryer here in the AAPEX studios. I want to thank our sponsors, Repairify and Great Water 360 Auto Repair, and we are joined by Ann Wilson, Senior Vice President, Government Affairs with MEMA. Good to have you here.
It's my pleasure.
Now, refresh my memory, 2016, 2017, Trump administration starting to talk about the 301 tariffs against China. So where do we stand right now with that?
So I think there's a couple things to remember. President Trump did indeed impose tariffs over a period of time on almost all goods that are coming from China.
From China, yeah.
And almost all of them include almost all motor vehicle parts and a lot of their inputs. Those tariffs continue. During the Trump administration, those 301 tariffs are supposed to be short-term.
25%, right?
Yeah, the 25% tariffs, but they're supposed to be short-term, take care of an immediate need. They've now drug on past short-term.
Okay.
And there is no longer actually an exclusion process. So in the Trump administration, a company could file for an exclusion and say, I cannot get X, Y, or Z except from China, and you might be permitted to have an exclusion, not pay the tariff. Those exclusions have actually run out for almost everything. So the Biden administration this year has been looking at the tariffs, trying to examine what is going on with the tariffs, whether they should continue. We expect a report on that soon, before the end of the year. We expect that the Biden administration will continue the tariffs. They may actually double the tariffs on some goods coming from there.
Okay.
And it's questionable whether they're going to reinstitute the exclusion process. And it's the exclusion process that we think is so important.
Okay.
We are so intertwined with China and have been for so many years. Our suppliers, our members, the industry ought to have the right to go to the administration and say, but I can't get it any place. I can't do this.
Is it crippling? Are some of these tariffs crippling for segments anyway?
It is adding another cost on. So most of these tariffs are not being absorbed by consumers. So when you talk to manufacturers,
because it's
they're
supposed to be a
absorbing
pass-along. Yeah.
Exactly. And most of them are not being absorbed. So if you think about it, you've got inflation, you've got higher cost of wages for your workers, higher cost of healthcare and other benefits, and you've got the tariffs. And then you also think about it is like, how are we going to be competitive as a country?
Right.
Because if we have to pay that 25% tariff, but maybe they don't have to, they aren't paying it in Europe or other places, are our goods as competitive as they should be globally?
We're not on a level playing field, is what you're saying.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I do think the other thing that people need to pay a lot of attention to is what's called transshipment. What we are seeing is we're seeing goods being shipped out of China to a third country and then being shipped into the United States, trying to avoid the tariffs.
Oh.
Now, that can be legally done. You can take a small component or a part and you can ship it someplace else and do other things to that part, make a larger component, say it's been transformed, and bring it into the US and tariffs wouldn't be due.
Yeah, but isn't there an added cost to moving it from one country to another?
There's obviously the cost, but you'd balance it out.
Yeah.
But what you cannot do is take a completed part, ship it to Thailand, which is where this is happening a lot.
Not do anything to it.
Not do anything to it, put it in a box, and bring it into the United States. This is going on a lot.
Oh, okay.
And those in the aftermarket who are seeing this go on and who are seeing their competitors do this need to be in touch with us at MEMA, and we can help guide them through the process to report that. Because it's against the rules.
Okay.
It's against the law, and talk about being counterproductive to anything that you could possibly do to make yourself competitive.
Now, you had mentioned that it was going to be a short-term thing. It's clearly going into a long-term thing. How far do you think these ripple effects are going to continue?
For many years.
So really a long
For many years. I think what we've got now going on in Washington is both the Democrats and the Republicans are really tightening our economic relationship with China. And they are not willing to open up areas like this. And so we are I think that most of our companies are saying they have now decided that 301 tariffs are a cost of doing business.
Got it. Okay.
But this is something that we've got to talk about with members of Congress. And I would urge any of the listeners, when you have a chance to talk to your member of Congress, talk about what fruitful relationships you have.
Okay.
If you've got concerns, you should bring those up. We obviously have concerns about counterfeiting. We also have concerns about, Chinese government and how they subsidize their own businesses.
Right.
All of those things are absolutely legitimate concerns we should address.
Okay.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that tariffs are the right answer to it.
Ann, lovely
Thank
to talk
you.
to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And again, always thanking our sponsors, Repairify and Great Water 360 Auto Care. I'm Bob Fryer, and we'll see you back here in our AAPEX studio.